Hi guys, Goosebop here. Just wanted to make a mental health awareness video on schizoaffective and autism. Personally, those are my two diagnoses. I take provenazine 16 milligram, which is right here. I'm not sure if you could read that properly. 16 milligram provenazine, which is basically for mood stabilization. So basically, what that means is when I go to work, I don't have angry fights with people. I don't cuss at people like I used to when I was younger or fight with people. And then this quetiapine drug, quetiapine 800 milligram, I take two 400 milligram tablets of this. Um, that's for disorganized thinking and delusions. So I could drive my car to work. I could work efficiently without making any excuses. Think more positively about myself. Feel happy. It gives me a false sense of happiness so I don't feel depressed anymore. And yeah, just a good positive mentality. Um, all right. So I'm gonna get basically into autism. There's three levels of autism. I think level three autism, I never had level three autism. Level three autism means like you always have a caregiver at all times. You're basically bedridden. I did have level two autism, which means like you kind of have bad hygiene. You're kind of like you don't have social skills. You kind of like you're kind of like a loser in life. You can't hold a job, you can't really drive, but like you could kind of like walk and talk a little bit. And now I'm at a level one autism where I could drive, I could hold a conversation. If someone tells me a joke, I kind of like laugh at it fakely and I don't really get it, but I can't really make friends as well as other people, but I could socialize and I could kind of understand what people are trying to say with like basic sentences, but my abstractness isn't that good. When people talked abstractly, I really understand that. I'm more of a concrete thinker. So I'm gonna start reading my Microsoft Word document right here. It's called Schizophrenic to Success. That's what I'm gonna name this video. So, with my parents, growing up when my parents forced me to go to church and school, that is when I remember attacking children and causing problems in my neighborhood. I remember one time vandalizing my best friend's house because he treated me badly one day. Would do bad things like this constantly, like ding dong ditching homes, but I would try to control myself as much as I could because I didn't want to get in trouble. My dad remembers the Sunday school lady telling him that I was Satan. My mom would force me to go to school when I didn't want to, and I would always hide in my shell because I didn't want to reveal that I was a bad kid and I didn't know how to speak properly. And I had some schizophrenic, disorganized thinking going on, so I would communicate to people by saying very basic sentences. I would have the highest attendance rate from kindergarten to 12th grade because my crazy mom would not let me stay home without a valid excuse. I luckily had a lot of friends in my neighborhood from elementary school to high school, so we all got along with each other after school and during the summers. We would have a lot of fun hanging out. When it was time for high school, a new game called Minecraft came when I started to Minecraft came when I started to play and it became my favorite game. I started to play a Minecraft prison server and it exposed me. It was almost like a real life simulator. My writing skills during the time were completely terrible, but the more time I spent behind the computer, the better I got at playing the game. My my junior year in high school, we had to do a 50-minute presentation in my English class with five other people. It was the hardest thing I had to do in my entire life. I remember vomiting the morning of the presentation at my house before I had to go to school that day. Somehow I managed to pull through. Luckily, the people in my group were nice enough to work with me, even though I viewed myself as a completely unlikable person. I even did a sport and ran cross country and track one year because I didn't want to be overweight. Throughout all this time, there were always bad kids trying to bully me, and because I was an abnormal kid, they looked eh, because I was an abnormal kid and looked evil. As I was running, one day at cross country practice, some really mean kid talked down to me and physically attacked me. I remember I remember crying on the curb when all of a sudden the teacher's car pulled up and catches me crying and picks me up and catches the bully red-handed. This was just one example of bullying. I was able to watch personality type videos after junior year during summertime, and I was trying to act like an ISTP personality and trying to watch videos of people talking and trying to replicate that because I either talked too fast or disorganized, and I got agitated easily. I started to ride my bike to school that last year, thinking I was going to get bullied anyways, so I might as well get some exercise and burn some calories while looking bad. The bike ride was over 6 miles uphill to school, and I did this 5 days a week every day for the rest of the year. Tons of girls started to take notice of me because I was 5'11 and weighed 155 pounds, so I guess I was a stud back then. I tried to avoid talking to girls specifically, though, because I was underconfident and I didn't trust myself because I could have been a woman beater. In my ceramics class, there was a kid named Jacob that was incredibly nice to me that I got along with, so I hung out with him and his friends at one of the tables in the library. When I was when I wasn't hanging out with this group, I was studying physics on the computer because I liked the subject and it was the only subject I felt like I could try at. I probably studied harder than anyone else in the class because I passed with a low B. All my other classes were low C's, and I felt like high school was easier than college because teachers boost grades if they feel bad for you. At the end of the year, I had to write something to re- I had to write and read something in front of my English class, so I went up without any practice, knowing that it would be the end of the year end of school in a few days, so it wouldn't matter because I wouldn't see any of these people ever again. So I wrote some bullshit about veganism and began reading it aloud to the class. As I'm reading, the first three words come out of my mouth and tears. The first three words come out of my mouth and tears start coming out of my eyes, and I cry abnormally, uncontrollably, with boogers coming out of my nose. They already knew it was coming, and the people started laughing hysterically at me. Half of the kids in the class hated me because I had nothing to offer to any of the group assignments, and I had a reputation for not being funny. Somehow I even managed to graduate when I faked doing half of my community service hours as well. I decided to go to community college after high school, still not knowing what was wrong with me, and that I needed to just thinking that I just needed to watch personality type videos to be normal. I'm extra eager to start my future, so I decided to take 2 classes during the summer, planning to major as an engineer because I wanted to make it big. As the class starts, I'm not even doing the homework, and I'm trying to spark notes everything. And when it becomes the end of the year, the end of the summer semester, I feel somewhat empty inside. The first semester arrives and of college, and I take programming, math 50, and English 50, and sociology. And all of the classes, as time goes on, the students are kind of looking at me like, what am I doing in the class? Because I make a fool of myself when I answer questions and my logic is way off. One girl in the sociology class gets angry at me because I keep avoiding talking to the girls in the class because I'm underconfident. Another guy who was sitting near me decided to sit at the opposite end of the class because I answered something completely illogically. Now I'm feeling even more down. I completely stopped showing up to programming. Second semester arrives, and I have chemistry, English, and math 110. Already in English, we are reading and we are trying to decrypt what is going on in the reading, and I'm sitting there with nothing to say each time. I feel completely useless at this point. My depression level is severe. I tell my parents that I'm depressed and I'm not accomplishing anything. They suggest that I see the college therapist. I went to go see the college therapist and he tells me that I have PTSD and I need to see a psychiatrist. I ended up totaling my car later that year because I ran a stop sign and had a head on collision. Me and my dad go see the psychiatrist and he tells us it's autism and it gives me an antipsychotic that kind of worked during the time. I stayed on it for a while, not really knowing what was going on or how I should really be feeling, but I decided to change the med. The first two drugs didn't work, but then I but then I got sent to a behavioral health center and for 30 days and they put me on quetiapine and Depakote. To this day, I still take quetiapine, but like a fool, I got off Depakote without consulting my doctor, and I ended up having a fist fight with my dad and ending up telling him that I'm gonna stab you to death, where he hid the knives in the house, believing I was going to do it. I went to jail for 3 months because they needed to find me another place to live. I was on quetiapine during this period of living away from home with a violent felony, so I still was a violent person, but I tried to control it because I didn't want to get another violent felony. All I wanted to do was become a successful person as soon as possible. While I was living in the halfway house, there were other kids living in the house that had similar issues. There was a clubhouse that had computers, so during the week I could go there and listen to Minecraft YouTube videos for fun. The kids at this halfway house weren't the best kids because I always got my clothes and food stolen and even my debit card at one point. I switched houses multiple times and started to go for runs on my free time. On my runs, I noticed that I had thoughts of placing trash cans in front of the road and running in front of cars to troll people. I decided to tell my psychiatrist about these thoughts I was having, and he decided to put me on a mood stabilizer drug called pervenazine, like Depakote. Now, all I needed to do was convince my parents that I was stable enough to live with them. Eventually, I moved back in and I fought a lot less with my parents. I got a job as a janitor for a year, and while I was on the drugs, and one day I decided to get off my pervenazine thinking I didn't need it, and a few days later I got fired for cussing in the bathroom too loud and asking someone if they were transgender when they really weren't. I still had a violent felony, so I would not get a job for about a year and a half, and the reason I got that job was through the government program, through a government program. I decided since I can't get a job, maybe I should invest my time in an education. So I decided to go to truck driving school. I had to go to truck driving school twice to achieve an A class CDL, which was my biggest regret today because I was never able to make anything of it, and I spent around 15K out of my own pocket. Over time, I boosted both of my drugs to the maximum dosage, and people and friends and family say they like me a lot more. The only issue I had with antipsychotics is I've gained weight, but I try to counter it with weight loss medication and exercise, like taking trizepatide, which I'm on right now, and I've been losing weight. Today, I work at Amazon warehouse and I've been working there for almost 3 years and I really enjoy it. And I do not plan on climbing up the ladder and I plan to stay as my current role. I plan to retire when I'm 75 years old. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'm pretty successful now. All you need to do is just basically hold a job like Amazon warehouse, and you could retire with millions in the bank. I checked the 401k calculator, and I'll be retiring with $2 to $3 million when I'm age 75. So I'm looking pretty good. That's all I wanted to say. Anyone, if you start 25, 30 years old, retire at age 70, 75, you'll be looking pretty good. You don't have to start off perfect in life. You could start off pretty rough like me and have a, you know, I feel like I have a pretty decent story and hopefully some of you guys find this motivating. Maybe some of you guys are going through some mental health issues right now, or maybe you just wanted to hear someone else's perspective. Maybe hear a mental health perspective that wasn't completely innocent, wasn't victim. And I don't feel like my story was victim. I feel like my story was completely opposite to victim. I was nothing but uh non-victim in my story. I caused a ton of problems, and look at me now. I'm no, I got my violent felony expunged, and I don't think I'll ever be going back to jail or ever having a criminal record ever again. So anyone could change, guys. Just look at my story, and peace out.